Time now for the Easy Choice presented by Geico and a Fantasy Football Today edition here on HQ with Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richard. I'm Tommy Tran. So it is now going from draft prep and draft advice to the real deal, Jamie. It starts and sits, and your start of the week, Tua Tagovailoa. Why have you gone with the Miami quarterback this week?
Well, first off, Tom, we like to go with somebody who's not necessarily widely regarded as a starter or someone in the gray area. And it's shocking to me that when you looked at the draft process, the CBS Sports average draft position, Tua was the 13th quarterback off the board. So he wasn't being drafted as number one quarterback. And his start percentage, at least as of Wednesday, was at 54%. So we're looking at guys that people have some questions on. And to be honest, I do as well, mostly because Teron Armstead may not be there for the Dolphins, and that's their starting left tackle. And he hasn't exactly played great when he hasn't been there. So I'm hoping that Teron Armstead will show up on Sunday. But I love the setup. Whenever you look at the point spreads, the over-under, the totals, this is the second highest total of the week, and it might be the highest total of the week by the time we get to tonight if Travis Kelce does not play. So Tua's in a great spot. It's going to be shootout with the Chargers. Last year he struggled in Los Angeles, but that was part of a brutal three-game stretch where they played the 49ers, the Chargers, and the Bills. And so he might have been looking ahead a little bit to that Buffalo game, knowing that it was a division game. But I love, again, what Tua should be able to do. You love the receiving core here with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who's healthy, thankfully. Devon Achane, I think, will be a little bit of a wild card in this matchup as well. He's healthy also coming off the shoulder injury. But mostly I'm expecting Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, big-time shootout, both quarterbacks coming to play, and Tua's got top 10 upside for this week.
And we've learned over the summer, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the right way to fall. We'll see if it can last the entire season. Dave, how are you here with Jamie's start of the week?
I'm right there with him. I think people were worried. I think this is why Tua was 13th off the board. People were worried about him staying healthy. Well, he's healthy right now, and it doesn't matter who he's playing. He could be taking on the Eagles. He could be taking on the Jets. He could be taking on the 49ers or the Cowboys. The upside is there for Tua Tagovailoa because of the receivers that he plays with and because of what he can do under center. So every time he goes on the field, he's got the upside for one of those spike weeks. It's the Chargers this week. It's not exactly an easy matchup. That pass rush could be a problem, but I think he's got that upside. You might as well use him if you got him.
All right, I mentioned we're doing starts and sits. For this particular segment, we're doing all starts. So, Jamie, we've taken a few of your selection. I want to start with Javonte Williams because he was a guy that people were taking third round, fourth round last year. Then he gets hurt. How optimistic are you about him? Because I know in terms of running backs with injuries, everyone's talking about Breece Hall. I haven't heard much about Javonte.
Well, mostly because Javonte's been practicing, and so that's the plus. And really, whenever he's healthy in a plus matchup, you should be planning to start him. And that's one of those situations in this matchup. Now, we'll see just exactly how the split goes between Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine. I think Perine's a good flex for this week. But I always look at some of the intangibles when it comes to certain players. And if you go back to last year, week 4, it was in Las Vegas, but this was the opponent where he suffered the ACL tear. And so I'm sure it was, I want to get back to exactly play the team that I got injured against. And I'm sure that was circled on his calendar. Clearly week 1 matters as well here, but it's a good matchup. The Raiders were bad against the run last year. I don't think this defense is going to be very formidable at all. And I think this is a game where the Broncos are playing with the lead. So Javonte's got an opportunity here to get into the end zone. I think be involved in the passing game also. So he's got the chance to be a very safe number 2 running back. And I don't think I'm going to say that very often about Javonte Williams, but this week is one in particular.
All right, so let's go from Javonte to Jahan Dotson. We know Terry McLaurin's status is up in the air as we get closer to Sunday. Does that factor into your sort of handicap of bumping Dotson up, and what are your overall anticipations for him this year?
We always look for the free space, and the Cardinals are going to be the free space. So this is an opportunity anytime you get a chance to get a good player against a bad defense, and the Cardinals are going to have a really bad defense. So Terry McLaurin's not 100%, and we saw the last time Jahan Dotson was on the field, that preseason performance for him, it was Sam Howell's go-to guy. And I think that'll be the case in this matchup as well. So this is a game where I think you'll see the Washington Commanders do anything they want to. The running backs are in play, both receivers, even McLaurin on a lesser scale because he's practicing. But Dotson, I think, is going to establish himself as the go-to guy in this passing game. He's got the chance to be a top 20 receiver this week, but a good number 2 receiver in this matchup against Arizona.
He just has that nose for the end zone, Tommy. We saw it last year, and you saw it in the preseason. I think that he's absolutely the guy that you're right with between the two Commanders wide receivers because he's the healthier.
And lastly, Jamie, from your list, Raheem Mostert circling back to the Dolphins and Chargers game, expecting a lot of points. You mentioned the total from Vegas, certainly anticipating a high-scoring affair.
Yeah, and obviously no Jeff Wilson, so that's a big part of this. And even though Achane's going to play, we'll see what role he does, take on here from a carry standpoint. Salman Ahmed also coming back from a neck injury, so we'll see what he does as well. But Mostert last season, he had 7 games with at least 15 total touches. In those 7 games, 14.8 PPR points. So when he's gotten work, he's been very, very successful. And the one thing that we did see from this Chargers defense, basically since Brandon Staley has been there, they cannot stop the run. And so this is a good opportunity for Raheem Mostert to have a breakout type of game. And I know that sounds weird for a 31-year-old running back, but he can establish himself as the guy here for Miami until Jeff Wilson returns, if that's going to happen at some point soon. We know he's out at least 4 games. But Mostert can show that he's still the guy for Miami, and they probably don't have to go make a transaction and add somebody off the waiver wire after week 1 when salaries are not guaranteed.
All right, let's get to Dave's starts for this week. We've also compiled the list of selections from Dave Richard that you can find, of course, also on CBSSports.com. Let's stay in the division, Dave, and talk about James Cook. The Jets defense should be formidable, but why are we backing Cook here?
I think one of their weaknesses is defending running backs through the air. And last year it didn't work out that way for the Bills, but they also didn't use James Cook as much. And I think they want to feature James Cook as their main running back. Josh Allen talked about him as a versatile weapon in their offense. The Jets did not do anything to improve their linebacking core nor their safeties, and those are the types of players that are going to line up the most against James Cook. It's PPR only. In non-PPR, James Cook is a low-end flex, but in full PPR, I think there's a chance he could get 4 or 5 catches in this game against New York, come through for close to 15 PPR points.
Yeah, I go the other way on James Cook. I think he's just a flex no matter the format, because as Dave said, we didn't see them use James Cook the right way. We really have never seen them throw to their running back since Josh Allen has been there. It's just been something that he has not done because he's got that mobility and likes to escape out of the pocket. And then the biggest thing that really concerns me about James Cook, really for the season, I'm hopeful, like Dave said, that he is going to be their lead guy. But what happens when they get down at the goal line? Not only do you have to worry about Josh Allen, they were using Damian Harris in that role, which was something that I think that they planned to do when they signed him. And so while Harris is healthy and the matchup is tough, because while the Jets did struggle against pass-catching running backs, again, I don't think that really applies for this team, they are so good up front. That defensive line is going to be one of the best in football, as we're well aware. And so I think James Cook's rushing will be limited. If his pass-catching is not to a high degree, then you're going to be frustrated, because if he doesn't fall into the end zone, which I don't think will be the case, he could be frustrating for just this week alone.
All right, and if we get to Courtland Sutton, a little bit like Jahan Dotson, because Sutton has a teammate that's dealing with an injury, and Jerry Jeudy. Also, it's Russell Wilson, a year removed from the Nathaniel Hackett experience. Courtland Sutton, good to go this week for you.
Loved him when Jerry Jeudy wasn't practicing, and now that Judy's practicing, has a chance to play. I like Sutton a little bit less. And Jamie said it about the Raiders. I actually think the Raiders' run defense might be a little bit better, but that's not saying much because they were so bad last year. Their secondary is still a mess. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for Courtland Sutton to go off in this matchup. If Jeudy plays, he's still not going to be 100%. So I think that'll lead to some easy opportunities for Courtland Sutton. Barely makes the cut for me as a top 24 receiver. Would love to use him as a flex. And again, somebody that differentiates between PPR and non-PPR. I think the catches will be there for him. That'll help push up his number.
And then David Njoku, is this going to be something that's purely a tight end play, or is even potentially a flex play that he could sneak in there?
Depends. That depends on how deep your league is. And so if you've got Njoku and, say, Mark Andrews or TJ Hawkinson, you could potentially start both. But I think as far as one tight end sets go, for fantasy rather, I think that he's got an outstanding matchup against Cincinnati. This is another team. Changed out both starting safeties. That's usually who they use to cover tight ends. And Njoku isn't going to make big splash plays down the field. He's a dink-or-dunk type guy. But I think the targets, again, will be there for him, along with a chance to score, and what should be a moderately high-scoring game against the Bengals. I think Njoku can finish as a top 5-ish type of tight end this week in PPR. I have him ranked ahead of Kyle Pitts.
Final thought, Jamie, on Njoku, maybe the tight end.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I think he's better than Pitts. I think he's better than Kittle. We're looking at situations right now where, you're not going to have most situations where somebody has Travis Kelce and David Njoku, but if you're trying to make a last-second trade because you're concerned about Kelce and maybe you're getting Njoku and something pretty significant for Travis Kelce, I would explore that, because I think Deshaun Watson's going to actually play okay this season. I don't think he's ever getting back to the level that he was. But for this particular week, as Dave alluded to, no Von Bell, no Jesse Bates, and really they're missing a key pass rusher also. So this could be an opportunity for Watson to play well and Njoku to follow suit.
Those are the starts from Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richard, part of Fantasy Football Today, which recently launched a Dynasty pod. I love the graphic there that they have. Heath Cummings, by the way, the primary host, but still getting everything from the fellas on FFT. Scan that QR code and check out the Dynasty podcast if you haven't already.